introducing new Coturnix quail in with your existing flock. So whether you're hatching your own chicks at home or you're getting birds from an outside source, I'm going to be showing you guys 3 different methods that you can practice in order to safely introduce new quail into your existing flock. And it's really important that we approach this with caution because quail are territorial and they will display signs of aggression with any newcomers, potentially causing some serious injuries to your new birds. And we can significantly decrease the likelihood of this happening or even eliminate it altogether if we just apply the strategies that we're going to talk about in this video. So let's talk about chicks for a second. So if you keep quail for self-sufficiency purposes, more than likely you're hatching eggs and raising chicks on a regular basis. But when is an appropriate time to introduce the new generation of birds that you have into your existing flock? And the answer for me is 3 weeks of age. And the reason for that is because when quail reach 3 weeks old, they're usually able to get off supplemental heat. They're ready to venture out of the brooder. They're feather sexable at this point, so I'm able to keep track of my male to female ratios, which is very important. And they're still about 4 to 5 weeks away from reaching sexual maturity, so I'm not as worried about my adult males in my existing flock, seeing them as competition for territory or for breeding. If you're introducing new quail from an outside source, I recommend temporarily isolating or quarantining the new birds in a separate housing, just for a week or two, and monitoring them just to be certain that they don't have any obvious communicable conditions that could spread to the rest of your flock. So the last thing you want to do is get new birds, integrate them right away, and then come to find out, there's an outbreak of some communicable illness that now your entire flock has. So it's better to just wait a week or two, monitor those birds, make sure there's nothing abnormal with their behavior or physical appearance, and then go from there and, continue with the integration process. So once your home-raised quail are able to venture out of the brooder and old enough to join the flock, or you confirm that your new birds are disease and illness-free, we're ready to physically put them in the same enclosures as your existing flock. So introducing quail before reaching sexual maturity is a strategy in itself that'll mitigate the likelihood of territorial issues. But if you're introducing adults or simply just want to increase the likelihood for success, I highly recommend completing this transition at night and or temporarily removing your existing quail from their enclosures into a separate area and reintroducing said existing quail and the new birds back into the enclosures at the same time. So a great way to do this is to remove your quail from the enclosures in the evening, relocating them in a temporary housing such as a bin, a cage, or a small confined area, and then taking advantage of the time that they're out to clean their setup, add enrichment, add food and water. Doing this basically disorients the birds where they lose recognition of the territory that you just removed them from. So after sundown, you can reintroduce your quail simultaneously with the new birds. If you're doing this with your 3-week-old quail, you're applying all 3 strategies. So that's introducing quail before the age of sexual maturity, removing and reintroducing existing quail with a new quail, and you're adding the quail at night. So if you have a very large flock in limited space, removing your existing flock may not seem practical. So just introducing your new quail at night without removing your established birds could suffice. But completing these steps is not a guarantee to eliminate territorial issues, but it will reduce the chances of it happening. So if you have the opportunity to apply all 3 methods, I highly recommend doing so just to stack the odds in your favor. So a couple things to keep in mind is quail can be quite neurotic. So removing them from their housing can induce stress on them and temporarily cease their egg production for about a week or 2. So make sure you plan ahead in the event that that does happen. Anytime I've done this, it's never been more than a day or 2 without egg production, as long as there's no other variables that are causing stress to your flock, which is why it's important to keep your male to female ratios in check. You're not keeping more than 3 quail per square foot in an enclosure. The housing is predator resistant, and your birds always have access to food and water at all times. So even if you do everything right in regards to the integration process with getting your new quail introduced with your existing flock, but your male to female ratios are off, your population count within the enclosure is too high, if they lack access to food and water 24/7, or you have predators making attempts to get in their enclosure, all these things can contribute to territory issues or high stress levels within your flock. So it's important to consider these variables when housing Coturnix quail. Another thing that helps with reducing stress is make sure they have enrichment, dust bathing areas, make sure they have plenty of hiding areas, and you want to make sure they have 360 degrees of protection from aerial and ground predators. As always, if you guys found any value in this video, drop a like down below, consider subscribing, and if you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section, or even share your own experience with raising Coturnix quail. So that's all for now, and thanks for watching.